So the first thing we need to do for the starter is make sure we get the oven really hot. So when the hake goes in, it's only going to be in there for a couple of minutes and almost going to blister the outside and really caramelise up the marinade. So I'm going to set it for 220, pretty much the max any sort of home oven is going to go to. So 220 degrees, and we're going to make sure that's at temperature before we start. Alright, so now that the oven's heating up, I'm just going to quickly get a bain-marie / water bath style going. So I've got a pot of water here. I've just sort of 2/3 filled it with cold water. I'm going to put it on the hob, bring it up to the boil, and then turn it right down. We're going to use that later to heat the beef up in. So then once it's hot, we can just flash fry it either side. Okay, so the first thing I've done is I've got everything out of the bags. So I've got the parsnips, so these in a bowl. So these have been dehydrated and then rehydrated. It sort of leads them to have a bit of a jerky texture, or like an al dente chew, I like to call it. I've got the carrot kimchi dressing. So this is carrot kimchi that we fermented for 14 days, blitzed up, and then in there you've got sake, mirin, soy sauce, and lime. So it's going to add a lot of freshness. I've also got the roasted and chopped peanuts ready to go. The spring onions, they're out. I've got the apple, and then the little herbs that I've given you. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to cut the apple. Apple's one of those things that you can't pre-cut, so unfortunately that's going to have to be on you. So I find the best way to cut apples, any sort of fruit, you need a sharp knife. If you don't have a sharp knife, you can use a little serrated one. Luckily I have a sharp knife, so the best thing to do is pop it down on the board and then just cut a cheek off the apple off. And you're only going to need sort of one cheek per person. So once you've got something like that, I'm going to cut it bang in the centre, and then turn it up, and then I'm just going to cut into about 3 even chunks, and then the same the other way. So we're going to get a nice dice going on here, and I'm going to fold the dice through the parsnip salad. Cool, so once you've got like that, we're going to chuck that straight in there. We'll give it a mix in a minute. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut some matchsticks. So these are going to be used for presentation at the end. So again, just bring it down, straighten it up, and then you want to take a really thin couple slices. Once you've got your thin slices, put them back together again, and then we're going to matchstick it. So again, just trying to keep them nice and even. Put them around and just chop the bottom off. And then you end up with something that should look like that. So nice thin little matchsticks which we can use for presentation. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of the peanuts through. So I'm going to put probably about half of them in the salad, and then the other half I'm just going to use to sort of garnish it once it's on. So good dollop. Give it a nice little mix around. Grab a few of the spring onions. They can go in as well. So the whole idea of this salad is going to be super fresh, and really sort of wake your palate up to the menu. Next thing, before I dress it, I'm just going to get a little bit of the kimchi dressing on the side of the plate. There's multiple ways to do this. If you want, you can just put a dollop on the side. So obviously I really like the dressing, so I'm going to put quite a lot on. So I'm going to do a couple lines. If you don't feel comfortable doing the lines, you can almost just do a little scoop and plop. But I'll show you how to do the lines. So the best thing to do, make sure the back of the spoon's nice and clean. Grab about 1/4 of a spoon's worth. And this is quite wet, so it will come out quite quickly. And then I'm just going to put it onto the plate, let it pour out just a little bit, and then drag. We'll do one more. So again, I'm going to go slightly less this time, so there's a bit of a different vibe going on. So again, just pour it on, let it come off the spoon, and then drag. You end up with something that looks a little bit like that. So now I'm going to dress the salad. So you're going to need a little pinch of salt, and then the dressing. So just a little bit at a time, and then just make sure you keep adding, tasting, until you get a balance that you're happy with. Obviously the dressing is going to be a little bit spicy, and obviously you're going to get those sort of fermented notes coming through. Alright, cool. Okay, so now that the salad's almost ready to go in the bowl, I'm just going to get the hake in. So like I said, we really want to shot cook this really quickly, so it gets a nice sort of caramelisation on the outside, and then we're going to let it sit and finish cooking off, almost like when you rest the steak, when you let it finish off in the oven. So I've just taken it out of the bag, I've poured the rest of the marinade into here, and I'm just going to pour a little bit on top. So the oven's up to temperature, it's going to go in, probably going to do 3 minutes on max, and then I'm going to turn it off for another 2 minutes. Okay, so the timer's just gone off on the hake. It was I did 4 minutes in the end, so 4 minutes in total. It's gone off, and now instead of taking it out, I've just turned the oven off and I've left it in there, and that's going to give us time to finish off dressing. So I'm going to start dressing the plate now, and by the time I've got the salad ready, the hake will be ready to go, and we can put it straight on. So now that that's ready, I'm happy with the flavour of that. I'm gonna aim for just a nice line next to the two lines. So when you look at the plate, everything's going to be sort of parallel, and it's going to look quite striking. So I'm just going to start dressing a little bit at a time. Just take a spoon out. And go across. You don't want to try and chuck it all on in one go, otherwise you're just going to end up with a sort of lump on the side. You're not going to get like different layers of texture coming through. Cool, once you're happy with the amount, you can just sort of neaten up the edges. So obviously with the parsnips, they're going to slightly fall over and they're going to come through. I want everything to look quite neat, so I'm just going to take a couple minutes straightening everything up. Okay, so once you're happy with the way it's looking, we can start really to refine the presentation. So you'll notice I've kept a few spring onions back. We've got our apple to go on, we've got a few peanuts, and then we've got a few petals and a little bit of coriander. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little bit of coriander, a little bit of green. The green's going to clash with the oranges and the whites on the plate already. So I'm just going to pick my coriander down. They normally come with like 3-leaf clovers, so I'm just going to pick it down into single ones, and I'm just going to dot little bits around. Next I'm going to use some of my spring onions to get a nice little bit of height. So like I say in most of my videos, the key to sort of plating and making things look good is having different angles and different layers of height. So now I'm just putting some apple on there, again trying to get as much height as possible. I'm just going to keep adding between the apple, the spring onions, the coriander, the peanuts and the petals until I'm happy with the end sort of look. Yeah, so now that I've finished dressing the plate, the fish has been in there for about 2 minutes resting. I'm going to take it out and we'll give it a little check. So this is exactly what you wanted, like a dark caramelisation of the sauce along the top, and it's going to be super sticky. Just bear in mind that everything on this is going to be really, really hot. So I'm just going to take my fish slice, and I'm going to lay the hake just next to the pars, just below the pile. The key with using a fish slice is if you don't want to get a dirty plate afterwards, just rub it along the side, and you'll get rid of anything that's been caught on the bottom. Like I say, I'm just going to pop it right next to the sambal. Alright, cool. Get rid of the hot tray. Yeah, so there you have it. Marinated hake, carrot kimchi, parsnip jerky, fresh apple and roasted peanuts. Enjoy. Alright, so for your beef, we're just going to get set up over here before we start heating up. So I've got everything out in front of me. I've got my plate, which we're going to plate on. I've got my beef, my Asian reduction, my bok choy, my gnocchi mushrooms. There's a few other things you're going to need. Number one, some oil for frying. I'm also going to use a little bit of butter for frying, but we can, if you don't have any butter, you can omit that. It's just going to add a little bit more flavour. A few spoons, a frying pan to sear off the beef, a pot, and a tray with some kitchen roll-ons. This is what we're going to sit the beef on in a second. Yeah, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this pot filled up with water, 2/3 the full, and then we're going to use that to heat through the Asian reduction, the bok choy, and the beef before we fry it. I've turned on my warming drawer onto sort of a medium heat, so that we're going to let the beef rest in there as well. If you don't have a warming drawer, just use an oven on its lowest setting. You're sort of aiming for between 40 and 50 degrees. So like I said, get the water on and then we can start cooking. Okay, so I've brought everything that I need over here. You're going to need your steak, your sauce, and your bok choy. I've also got my water. It's just come to the boil now. So I'm going to turn it right down. I'm also going to move on to the back one. So you want this to be you want it around 65 degrees. It's literally just going to be heat through the veg. Heat the sauce up, and take the chill off the steak. It's very important that you take your beef out of the fridge as early as possible. So this has been sat out now for about 45 minutes, so it's still a little bit cold. It could probably sit out for an hour and a half, but I've taken the chill off it. The sort of thing we're going to do now is we're going to drop the steak and the sauce into the water when it's cooled down just a fraction, and it's going to be in there for about, the beef will be in there for about 2 minutes, and the sauce we're going to keep in there for the entirety. So 2 minutes the steak going to be in there, then we're going to take it out, and we're going to flash fry it really hard. So that's going to get nice caramelization around the outside. Basically caramelization when it comes to beef is flavour, so it's going to get a lot of flavour on the outside of the beef. And then once we're happy with the colour of the beef, we'll rest it and we'll drop the bok choy into the water as well, as that's only going to take a couple of minutes to heat through anyway. So once this is cooled, we can start. Yeah, you're aiming to be able to hold your finger in there for probably 1 to 2 seconds. Alright, so that water now is around 65 degrees. If you do have a meat probe or thermometer, feel free to use that. It's probably a lot more accurate than using your finger. But yeah, so it's about 65 degrees. So I'm just going to drop the sauce in, and I'm going to drop the steak in. While that's heating through, so it's going to, like I said, the steak's going to be in there for about 2 minutes. I'm going to get this pan starting to get warm. So I'm going to put it on about 7 out of 9. I'm using an induction hob now. Obviously every hob's going to be different. I'm going to crank it up. So yeah, just bear with me. You want it to be hot, so as soon as that steak hits, you're going to get instant caramelization. Alright, so that steak now, the outside is going to be nice and warm. Yeah, anywhere between 1 minute to 2 minutes, it's going to be fine. You don't want to do too much, obviously you're going to ruin the cuissons. At this point, I'm going to crank the pan right up, so it's almost on max. I don't tend to go on max with the induction, I find it goes a bit berserk. Yeah, so I'm going to carefully take the steak out of the bag and place it on my bit of kitchen roll. So obviously, when you're sous videing things like this, you can't season it too early. Obviously salt draws out moisture, so in terms of meat, it's going to dry things out. So this has got no salt at the moment, so this is a good opportunity before I start frying to get quite a good amount of salt around the outside. Okay, so now my pan's hot, my steak's seasoned. I'm going to add the oil in here. So going for a decent glug. We're going to use the oil to caramelise the hell out of it, and then once we've got that nice amount of caramelisation, we're going to add in a little knob of butter for a little bit of flavour, and then we'll take it out and rest it in the drawer. So once the oil starts to move around the pan by itself, you know it's hot. I'm just going to turn the fan up a little bit here. Yeah, so that pan's ready. And the idea is we're going to put it on one side, leave it, and then turn it. So I'm going to go top and bottom first, and then I'm going to roll it. So just gently place it in, and using your hand, just push it down gently You don't want to, I'm not putting any pressure down, I'm just making sure there's an even contact. If you put too much pressure, what you're going to find is you're going to be pushing the juices of the steak out, and again, that's going to make it dry. So just in there. And you can see I've got a nice hot pan, so that caramelization is almost instant. So what I'm going to do is turn it over and do the other side. Keep checking it, put it back down. A little bit longer. Alright, so now I've done both sides and I'm just rolling it round to get the final layer of caramelization. Just use the side of the pan to prop the steak up so you can get those difficult bits to get. Once you've got that caramelization, this is when I'm going to hit the butter. I'm literally just going to baste it a few times. Just take the pan off a little bit or turn it down, and that will just make sure the butter doesn't burn. Couple bastes, and that butter's raging hot. So now I'm happy with that. I'm just going to pop it on the tray, and it's going to go in the resting drawer where we start plating and finish everything off. Okay, so the steak's just gone in. I'm just going to drop the bok choy in. Just let that heat through for a couple of seconds. Then we're going to come over here and start dressing. Just a quick side note, the yeast emulsion for you guys is going to be in a bag, but I'm just using a bottle. So just take a small little snip of the top off, and then we'll do exactly the same as I'm going to do with the bottle. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the bok choy along the back. I'm going to go for a sort of little crescent following the shape of the plate, and that's sort of going to enclose the beef and the mushrooms up. The idea here as well that each one is going to sit on top of the other one. You're going to get more height going on. So just make sure you're happy with the shape of it. Cool. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the beef out. We're going to carve it and then glaze it up. So when you're cutting meat, you always want to cut against the grain. If you cut it with the grain, when you're chewing it, it's going to be more fibrous and it's going to be tougher to eat. So what I mean with the grain and against the grain, if you look at the beef fillet, you put it on its side like this, you can see that the grain is going this way. So if you imagine the fillet, it would be about this long, and it would be one whole piece with fibres going this way. So we're going to want to cut it sort of diagonally against that grain. So I'm going to take it like this and just cut diagonal slices. Cool. Now I'm going to place that, I'm going to fan it slightly and just place it going across. So just on the board, push it all down a little bit. So you can just see a little bit of the cuissons, and then carefully pick it up and place it on the plate. With the end piece, you might see the carve a little bit off. So it's ready. Now I'm going to hit a nice big dollop of yeast emulsion here. And then finally, I'm going to place the enoki mushrooms around, just in places where you're going to get sort of maximum height. Lastly, I'm going to take a spoonful of glaze and just dress it along the meat. Feel free, if you want, put it into a jug and you can pour it a little bit like a gravy. But for me, it's a strong sauce, so you need a little bit to sort of balance out the rest of the dish. There you have it. Beef fillet, Asian reduction, yeast emulsion, Szechuan enoki mushrooms, and a dashi braised bok choy. I hope you enjoy it.